Episode 171 Above Ground Podcast. The Way Out is Through with Valery Brosseau.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Coming at you live with real conversations about mental health from the perspective. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now your hosts, TPP and Will Foley. Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 171 Above Ground Podcast. With our very first repeat guest, Mrs. Well, I have to get her married name right, and I apologize, Val. I should have looked it up, but Valery Brosseau is back on to talk about her wonderful new book of poetry and all the wonderful work she's doing up in Canada. Amazing woman, kicks ass, and she'll be coming up again, and that's our first repeat guest. And now that summer is winding down, we're getting into walk season, and that's why I wanted to talk about next Sunday, September 25th. It's coming right up in a few days, and it's going to be the Capital Region Walk for Rita 2022. And we are going to be at Saratoga Spa State Park, up off of Route 9. And you can go to their Facebook page, at Capital Region Walk for Rita Facebook page, and register for the walk there. Above Ground Podcast will be there, and Tim and I will both be doing different things. I'll be running around for AFSP, and Tim will be at our booth next to Meg in Healing Springs, so can't wait to see her. And big shout out to Healing Springs. They're doing all kinds of stuff, man. I hope everybody is doing well out there. We have our very first repeat guest this week, so I'm not going to talk anymore. It is time for the kick-ass Valery Brosseau. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
Oh, you know who that is. It's the sweet soul stylings of Mr. TPP. What's up, brother? Good morning, Timmy. See, there's a smile. See, he can smile, people, and it does show through when he talks, too.
It's about as elusive as the great Bigfoot, but it happens.
Yeah. We squatching for a smile, man.
That's right. Got a lot to smile about this morning, right?
Absolutely, brother. So, dude, why don't you tell us what we're doing this morning? This is a first for us.
It's a first for us. Yeah,
it is a first for us.
And it's a first for us. We have the first repeat guest on today, Valery Brosseau. I believe it was number 86.
86 in the blood.
In the blood.
It isn't in my blood.
So welcome back, Valery.
Thank you so much. I'm super stoked to be here, hang out with you guys again, talk about all kinds of super important stuff, and get silly a little bit too, of course. So,
oh, absolutely, man. If you come on the show, you better be ready to get silly, because unfortunately, as we know, mental health is serious, but we all have to laugh, man. And you know what? With all the shit and trials and tribulations that we've all been through, if you can't laugh, then you're really a lot further. We're a lot further behind in the pitfalls than we think. Valery, it's awesome to see you again. I know since 86. Gosh, we're up to we're in the 140s, 150s. So we're looking like 60 episodes ago, which is crazy for us too. And we want to hear what's been going on since. You've been a very busy lady. So if anybody doesn't know, Valery is, she's a mental health advocate, a trainer, a writer, a speaker. She's also a kick-ass martial artist, and she's not just a survivor. Like, she is a thriver. She totally kicks ass, and we just want to know what you've been up to.
There's so much to talk about. I don't even know where to start. I'm just happy to be back, and actually what I'm going to start with is a bit of an anecdote, saying that if you can't laugh about it, you're not where you should be. I was at the pharmacy the other day And working for myself, having my own business, I don't have benefits. And so I pay for my medication out of pocket. And I go to the pharmacy and I pick up my psych meds. And it was just happened to be that at that time I was renewing all of them at the same time, which is quite costly. And I look at the pharmacist and she brings it up and I say, oh, well, it's, it's expensive to be crazy. And she looks at me and kind of goes, how would you like to pay for that?
It is quite alarming the reactions to get from people when people are forthright about their own issues, and it's just like how uncomfortable people get. But as we know, these are uncomfortable conversations.
Of course. And I think that the more we can use a little bit of humor and infuse a bit of levity in a respectful way, we can make that topic more accessible. But she just did not really know how to respond. And I was thinking, you work in the medical field, you should be a little more comfortable with this topic.
Absolutely.
I agree fully with the add in like the humor part of the thing, because I think it makes it easier. It breaks down a little bit of that wall for people, and yeah, they may not know how to respond, but maybe if it happens again, second, third time or whatever, they'd be like, oh, okay, or at least get a smile out of it, and
yeah,
be a little bit more at ease.
Exactly. It's just my way of saying, I recognize that I have challenges and it doesn't always have to be doom and gloom. And if I'm willing to be open about it and be a little tongue in cheek about it, it's okay for you to discuss it as well,
Yeah, I think it's brilliant.
So yeah, that was an interesting moment, but there definitely has been a lot going on. I'm not sure where you gentlemen want me to start.
Anywhere, just wherever you.
Yeah, we're gonna try to cover. We're gonna try to cover it all because I'm hoping maybe if you can or will, you'll share one of your poems with everyone too at the towards the end, because I'm really interested to hear about how the poetry is doing and I think you're working on a second book, right, of poetry.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on right now. So in May of last year, I published my book of poetry, which I have right here with me. It is published on Amazon. It's super easy to find there. So it was self-published, and it was a work of 10 years. It took me 10 years to put that book together. There's actually one poem in it that was in 5 parts that was written over the course of 10 years. It just goes to show that sometimes you can't force these things. It's about when it's ready and when you feel like you've put into it what you need to put into it, and it represents you the way that the universe kind of wanted. And there's a few pieces that were added closer to the date of publication because I joined a writing circle with that's hosted by a poet that I very much respect, and I got a few pieces out of those prompts and those evenings of poetry. But the book was such a journey, and I think that the writing of it really reflects what the content is, because it does reflect very much on my mental health journey. And so if I had to qualify the book, it definitely is a book of mental health poetry. It's in 3 parts, and so it's not all doom and gloom, but it does start with some heavier, more difficult things that I went through, and I tried to organize it so that each section would progressively sort of move towards that message of hope, and that's what I'm hoping people will gain from it when they read it. And that's what will sort of be the strong message that comes out once you read all of the pieces from start to finish. And it was such a process. It was so much fun. The cover art is done by a friend of mine who lives in Rio in Brazil. He's an amazing artist. He read all of the poems and then started drawing these beautiful pieces of just sort of what came to him from what he read. And when he gave me this one as a draft, I said, that's it, that's the cover. And then I wrote the final poem of the book based on his artwork. And so
that is so awesome. Now that is art. That's true art and true healing. Like, it's amazing the journey that art can take us on. And wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's he's so wonderful, and he really just put everything of himself from what he was feeling reading my pieces into drawing the pieces that he offered me. And then when I saw this image that he sent me, the first word that came to my mind was through, which is the title of the book, because there's no way around it. You can't trick your way or find a shortcut through the trials of life. The only way out is through. And so that is really what the book is about. And it's funny because the 1 year anniversary of my Zoom book launch will fall on my wedding this year. So I was going to have a 1 year anniversary like book party. Sorry guys, I'm getting married.
Congratulations. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. That's been postponed many times due to COVID, but it's also, you know, I appreciate very much the sentiment of marriage is a big thing and it should be celebrated. However, we need to, especially as women, build a message that marriage and kids is not the only path, and whatever path women choose needs to be honored and supported and celebrated. And we should have as much of a party for the woman who got promoted as the woman who got engaged. And I completely, that's sort of my view on it. However, for me personally, a wedding and a marriage is such a huge milestone because, as if anybody's listened to the previous episode I was on, I have borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder. And with BPD, many doctors consider that a death sentence for relationships. They say that people with BPD cannot hold healthy relationships, that the symptoms are too interpersonal and too severe, and that it's just not going to happen. And here I am with an amazing, wonderful, supportive man, and we're going to throw a little party and legally sign some papers. So, you know, it just is something that I very much appreciate, Will, that you say, you know, thriving and that I'm really doing well, because that's what I'm aiming for, is not just to get by and manage the symptoms. It's to build a life that I really am excited about. That's something that I've been able to foster and work on. And it's a hell of a lot of work, and it's sometimes steps forwards and backwards. But the fact that I'm now getting to this wedding, it means a lot more to me than just, you know, oh, ever since I was a little girl, I thought about my wedding dress. And that's a really wonderful sentiment. And I know that, you know, that is part of it. But for me, it's that piece of, doctors said this would never happen. Doctors said that the disorder I have is such that I'm going to be struggling with relationships for the rest of my life, and it's almost an impossibility. And so that's kind of what that wedding represents for me.
That is awesome. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you both. I see your pictures on Instagram. You guys look like you're having fun. You were here in the States recently on a trip, weren't you?
Yeah, we were visiting my mom in Florida, so we had a chance to, you know, lounge by the pool, smoke some cigars, go to the beach.
Thriving is what we aim for. And our listeners out there, a lot of our listeners out there might not be thriving. How do you start to find the energy to rebuild after a setback?
I think there's a lot of parts, a lot of moving parts to the answer to that question. And after a setback, I think one thing that's really important is self-compassion, and remembering that that setback is not a failure. It's just a stumble, and it's about how you pick yourself back up. And if you need somebody to help you back up, if you need 5 people to help you back up, there is no shame in any of that. You just have to try to find, and it's not about silver lining it, feel your emotions, feel the tough stuff, process it, but also find space for honoring the fact that you have strength and resilience and you're still going. And if you're in general in your journey of recovery in that place of getting by and you're not quite living the life you want yet, I think something that can really help is something that I try to do every day, which is infuse little moments of things that are meaningful to me or that make me feel valued or that bring joy into my day. So I have a checklist that I use in the morning, and my morning routine, I try to put on a playlist of music that really gets me going. And it doesn't have to be, you know, super happy music to ignore the fact that I'm sad. If I'm sad, I might listen to something a little bit different, but just music that inspires me. Or I have a YouTube playlist of a lot of spoken word poems from poets that I really love. And I'll put that on the big screen TV, and that just fires me up and gets me going. So just little moments of joy. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I love my whole entire life all the time, because nobody's like that. But finding those moments where you can infuse a bit of joy, a bit of meaning, a little bit of feeling good about yourself. If you don't have the energy to do something, it's about little baby steps to start building that momentum. And if you look at step by step as opposed to the whole big picture, oh, when am I going to be married with a house and kids and vacations and two cars, and you're going to get super overwhelmed if you look at that big picture. So looking at the steps that are going to get you there and taking them one at a time can really help as well.
Very valuable advice from someone who not only talks the talk, but she certainly walks the walk and rolls the roll too, man. Because you're a black belt, right?
I'm a black belt in karate. I have a purple belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Okay, yeah. See, she really rolls.
Yeah.
Those are actually very crucial things that you had listed. Those, I feel like those are very spot on. How you said it and everything. It's just, I think it's super important, to find those little bits. And it's not about saying, oh, well, I had this happen to my dad, this. But if you found one little thing that brought you joy in a day, that's a win. That's a win. Did you find that with your diagnoses, did you find that you struggled with writing this book of poetry at all? Was there times where you kind of just put it down and wanted to give up?
There were times when I questioned myself and found a little bit of doubt in terms of, is this just crazy mentally ill person leaving it all out on paper, and who's going to want to read this? And, am I delving too deep into things that people want to sweep under the rug and ignore? And is that, who's going to really connect with this book? But as those 10 years sort of went on, there are pieces in here that I've performed at open mics, or that I've posted here and there, or in other magazines and stuff. And the reception that I got for those poems just really showed me that I had to keep going and finish this book, because people were really connecting with it and really finding solace in the fact that they weren't alone and somebody had managed to put their experiences into words. So despite that doubt, I kept pushing. And when the poems came to me, it's interesting because I read Stephen King's memoir, and I find him very interesting because
great book. Sorry, but not too many people like his memoir it's called On Writing.
Yeah.
And I was so inspired after listening to that. And it's such a long, in-depth book, and it's not really necessarily all about the process of writing, even though he covers that towards the end. His story is incredible, and what he's it's so awesome. So I apologize.
No, I totally hear you. I loved the book. I loved the memoir part of it. And the writing process part of it was very interesting as well for me, because he is a lot more militant about it. It's, I'm going to lock myself in this room for 4 hours. I need this many words, no radio, no phone, no nothing. Whereas I find that maybe if I were writing fiction or nonfiction, that would work for me. But with poetry, it had to come when it wanted to come. And so I would experience things, and then it would come out on paper, and it just ended up being something that I realized people wanted, even though they didn't know it yet. I just knew that the pieces I had shared already, that people were connecting with them. So I had to get this done. And I really wanted the artwork to reflect and be exactly what I had in mind. And my friend Tiago in Brazil, who is amazing, just like I said, he read it cover to cover and came up with this beautiful artwork. And that led me to write the last piece of the book. And what I'm really hoping is that it takes people on a journey from those darkest places to not a sunshiny rainbows and puppies place, but just hope, just knowing that there's always a way forward, and it's always worth it.
The only way out is through, and you are certainly evidence of what hope and energy and putting yourself out there. And that's what I so admire about you, just the forthrightness of everything, and just how you are out there and you put yourself into everything. And I'm so excited for you and so happy for you that this has been going on. You are such an amazing force that you need to be heard. And I can't thank you enough for coming back on, because we love you. It's awesome. We love your work. You need to go to her website, ValeryBrosseau.com. She does trainings, and she does groups and stuff. You do one-on-ones.
Yeah.
And how is that going? How is your one-on-one trainings and speaking stuff coming since COVID? I'm sure it's been quite the journey. And how did COVID and coming out of that play into your recovery? And
It's been interesting in terms of the business. Definitely a lot with COVID. A lot more corporations and companies were reaching out to me for sessions for their staff, for presentations, for trainings. And so with that, I was doing a lot of your sort of mental health at work and isolation and connection within a COVID workplace and things like that. And that was really great to connect with employees who maybe very rarely have the chance to have a forum where they can talk about mental health. So that was super cool. With my one-on-one clients, it's always been via Zoom. So COVID didn't really alter that very much, but there's definitely more people with everything that was going on who started seeking out the support. So I have a pretty good roster of one-on-one clients that I work with right now on that sort of, I call it sort of elevated peer support, because it comes from the lived experience, but there is so much education and background behind it as well. And that's been really great to connect with people one-on-one and help them build those tangible tools and skills that they need to manage what they're going through, especially with COVID and the added stressors and all of that. And it's great when one of my clients, I usually work in 8-week blocks. And when one of my clients wants to renew for another 8 weeks, I'm like, yay, I'm not losing a friend. And we get to keep working together, which is great.
It's connection seems to be a very, very huge part of this. And someone who's isolated, what is like one of the first, what is an icebreaker for you to get them to come out to you on in like your one-on-ones, if you wouldn't mind sharing? Because I know a lot of us have problems starting the conversation and keeping the conversation going. So what would be an icebreaker or something that you could say to people who are really starved for connection, but can't seem to get themselves out of their comfort zone?
Right. I find that the thing with that is that we don't think we have the energy and the capacity for social connection, but unless we start building some social connection, we're not going to build the capacity and energy for it. It's like a weird cycle. So when I speak to people who are hesitant, I mean, sometimes it really just starts with a text or an email to try to even get them on an intro call, because I do sort of an exploration call for free with all my clients, because they need to choose me, I need to choose them. It needs to be a relationship where we feel comfortable with each other, we feel that it's going to work. And I also make sure that they're not dealing with things that I should refer them out to a psychologist, like deep-seated trauma, things that I'm not equipped to deal with. And I need to make sure that they're ready to put in the commitment as well. And if they're not, there's no shame in that. It's just not where they're at in that moment. And maybe we can work together in the future. So I get them on an intro call. And I think my approach, to answer your question more directly, is that I really make it clear that there is no judgment. There is no expectation other than the ones they put on themselves. It's not about making somebody a cookie cutter, socially acceptable, there you go, you're fixed of your mental illness. It's, what are your goals? What do you want? Where do you want to go? What drives you? What are the things that make you feel like your life is worthwhile? And let's work on those. And really making it clear that there's no judgment, there's no pressure. And sometimes we just sit in silence, or somebody will, I've had a client just kind of sit there and cry, and I just hold space, and it's okay, let it out. We can talk once you can take a breath, and it's all good. I've been in the same place. So knowing that there isn't that pressure to be what we so often deem socially acceptable and not awkward, and just it's all about being raw and real. And I think that opens the door a little bit for people to be more comfortable with being vulnerable.
Yeah, being comfortable with vulnerability and being open is definitely very uncomfortable for people, and especially when it comes to expressing ourselves, because I think a lot of it is the lack of language that a lot of us don't possess, that aren't, or just coming to the realization that something isn't right. And I'm not saying that it's not wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's just that something isn't off, because it is what it is, and there's nothing you have to face it head on, and it's scary. How do you get people over that fear? How do you what is a tip to get you over that fear? Because as someone like you who rolls BJJ and has the background that you have, how do you get over the intimidation of fear?
It's tough. It depends on the situation, depends on the sort of environment that I'm in, the people that are around. But I think, again, that piece of little baby steps and building momentum is really important, and not taking it on all at once. And if it comes to something like mental health, and facing what you're dealing with mentally, maybe the fear is too great if we tell you that you're going to be thrown into a 2-hour mental health assessment followed by a 1-hour psychologist appointment tomorrow. But we can break that down into steps and say, okay, well, all you have to do for this entire week is go on psychologytoday.com and make a list of 6 psychologists that maybe you want to shoot an email to that might seem like a good fit. Don't even email them. Just make that list. That's all you got to do this week. And breaking it down in steps, and taking it moment by moment, and making it a little bit less overwhelming and scary, I think is a big part of getting over that fear. At the same time, sometimes I talk to my clients and they're like, okay, so to get excuse me, to get this done, what's the tip? What's the trick? What do I do? And I look at them and I say, I'm so sorry to say this to you, but the trick is just do it. That's all it is. Sometimes that's literally what it is.
The trick is there is no trick. That's the
Yeah.
thing, right? There's a meme floating around out there, and I don't know who said it, but it was said something like the bad news is the door is locked, and the good news is there is no key. So it's that same kind of just go for it and open the door. And
Absolutely.
I agree with that. It's as tough as it may be, and as far away as it may seem to people, you're absolutely right. I'm a firm believer that the biggest barrier is our own thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. And I can share something else that's going on that actually directly relates to this. So I have been accepted into a master's of social work.
Woo! Awesome.
So I'm super excited to go.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so excited to go on this new endeavor, this new challenge to build my skills, better serve my clients, and just really up my knowledge. But receiving that acceptance, I mean, it was the 3rd time I applied, and I was terrified to apply for a 3rd time because I was like, can I take that rejection again? I have a Bachelor of Arts, and so getting into an MSW without a BSW can be difficult. But I do have a lot, like thousands of hours of experience and a lot of training. And I think what they wanted to see was that I wasn't giving up, and I was continuing to take new trainings and improve my skills and work towards what I wanted. So that 3rd application, I remember I was walking through a park and I heard a ding in my pocket, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if that was the answer from my program? And I look at the email, and it was. And so I open the email, and it says, we have made a decision about your application. Check your account. Now, the last 2 times, all it had said was, we regret to inform you. And I was like, the F out of here, you regret, like, whatever. But this time it said, check your account. So my mind starts spinning. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I got in, but don't get too excited, but be excited, but don't get too excited. Oh my gosh. And my computer was blocks away because I had gone on a walk. So I'm power walking all the way back. I get to my laptop where my login is pre-saved and I can actually get in. I check the account. The second I read the word admitted, I just stopped reading, and I was holding my laptop in one hand, and I just threw my hands up and started shouting and celebrating. And it was quite the moment.
How do you start to make those small steps to get to such a big goal? How do you break down that first step? Like, what would be your first step for someone who's just starting out on this?
It's difficult to, that first step is always kind of the most difficult one, because you got to figure out exactly where you're going to plant your foot, and then all the other steps will follow. But I find that I'm a very visual person. I find that writing things down and really breaking it down into lists and pros and cons and that type of thing really helps. Or if you're somebody who can do that out loud with a friend and have somebody to bounce off of, those are really helpful ways to start. But the first step can be as small as you are comfortable with, as small as you can handle. If the first step is apply to this job because your goal is to become a mental health professional and work in this field, if that's comfortable for you, then that's fine. If the first step is just find the email that you have to send the application to and leave it at that for the day. Then that's the step you're comfortable with. If it's review your cover letter or your resume, whatever that step you're comfortable with, if the first step is just, call your friend Tyler or whatever who works in this field and ask him for a couple tips, maybe that's the first step. So it's whatever you're comfortable with. But it is true that the smaller the better, because it'll just build that momentum and it'll start snowballing. Yeah, it's about your comfort level and what you think will help you build that momentum and push you forward. Because if you think, okay, so for example, if I wanted to look at my journey and think, okay, well, I want my own practice. So I need, as a MSW, as a master's of social work, I can do counseling and have my own practice. Okay, so step one, apply for an MSW. That was not the first step for me. There were so many steps prior to that. And a lot of them were internal as well, just kind of fighting that mindset of, I'm not going to get in. I don't deserve it. I don't have a Bachelor of Social Work. All I have is this lived experience, and really just finding a way to give credit to the training and the experience and everything that I have, and find that self-confidence. So it really depends where you're headed, but the smaller, the better, I would say.
And it truly is about building momentum, because that is the law of attraction. The law of attraction is that you put it out and it will come back. But again, you have to realize what you put out comes back. So if you put out garbage
Yep.
comes back. If you put out something good comes back.
For sure.
Go ahead,
I have
Timmy.
I just have a question. I'm curious. Do you find that with your clients or just people in general, since you're kind of out there in the midst of everything, is it tough for people to choose like someone that's not technically a medical professional, more of a peer specialist? Do you get some resistance on that?
That's a good point to bring up. And I do love to address that, because I have a lot of internalized judgment for myself of whether I'm qualified to do this and, whether I should be doing this. But what I find is that once people meet me and have that intro call, they realize that I know my shit. I'm very upfront with them. This won't be covered by your insurance because I'm not licensed. And my waiver that they sign explains very clearly that it's more of a coach peer support relationship rather than, and I do very much make sure to refer people out to psychologists and psychotherapists should they have issues that I'm not equipped to handle. But most of my one-on-one clients are people who either have BPD as well or are supporting someone with BPD. And what they want is the lived experience of what has worked for you. What have you learned? If it's a family member of someone with BPD, help me get in their head and really understand why it is that they have these behaviors so I can better support them with less judgment and more compassion. It's about, the right fit. If somebody comes to me and says, I've been diagnosed with PTSD and I have deep-seated trauma, I wish you all the best. I will support you as I can. Send me messages. We can chat, but I'll refer you to someone who's better equipped to deal with that. So I'm very upfront about that. And with corporations and organizations and schools, I find that I do believe my business will grow more once I do have that accreditation. But I find that if they meet me and see the passion and the aptitude I have for connecting with a crowd, that's more what speaks to them, and the fact that I can start an open conversation and get that discussion going. And because we're sort of, especially with companies, we stay a little bit more surface level in terms of mental health. So they don't need somebody who's done a 4-year degree in psychiatry. They just need someone who can facilitate that conversation, who understands how to break down stigma, and who can share some personal pieces that help people connect, understand better, and feel less alone.
I can speak from my own personal experience about imposter syndrome, because I've struggled with that myself, especially applying for that new position. That I'm like, okay, am I qualified enough to do this? Even though I have like certification or whatever, have I learned enough? And sometimes that comes at a very big cost, because you hold yourself in smaller spaces because you're afraid to reach out. How does someone who is struggling with that imposter syndrome start to break down why they think that?
That is something that I still struggle with a lot. It's one of my more difficult sort of mindset changes that I'm trying to make. And I have a friend who's a business coach and more of a mindset coach, I guess. And she is constantly telling me that my systems and my, the way that I run things and the way that my business is structured, that's not where I'm finding that I'm at an impasse. It's really just with my mindset. And and she's right. I mean, I can't pitch a company a certain price for a 1 hour presentation if I don't believe in that price, if I don't believe that I'm worth it and that I deserve it. So it is very difficult. I struggle with it a lot. So internal validation and finding it from yourself and believing it yourself from the inside out is obviously ideal. But if you're not there yet, I find that using external validation, there's nothing wrong with that. And I like to keep emails and testimonials and feedback from clients that I've had and reread those when I need a bit of a boost that tells me, okay, people appreciate your work and they know that what you do is valuable, and just kind of give myself a reminder in the hopes that one day I can sort of generate that for myself from myself,
I love how you have come up with your own hype tracks. And actually I got an idea because you speak so great that you ought to record yourself reading the testimonials so you can play them
Exactly.
whenever you want.
That's not a bad idea at all. Yeah, imposter syndrome is killer, and it's really hard to let go of. And it's something, again, it's step by step and baby step by baby step. And I read something recently that I really liked, and it said that we use the word baby steps to mean sort of tentative, little steps where we're testing it out and seeing how far we can get. But how do babies walk? Baby steps are actually just full of unbridled confidence, and they fall and get back up and keep going. And so I much prefer that.
Yeah, they don't know the word failure.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's like they got you have a little bit of that in your brain. Like, I don't think give up is in your vocabulary, you know. And I think that's part of it.
Yeah, it's definitely crossed my mind many times, but I just gotta swat it away and just keep moving and know that it's gonna be worth it. It's never easy, but it's always worth it.
I have a question, actually, kind of more on a personal level for
Yeah.
me, is talking about the internal and external validation. So what, in a case where, say, if you have some of the internal validation and you're like, I like this, I believe in it, but then you try to put it out there and you don't get any kind of positive external validation, like, then do you, because I know for me, I unfortunately start questioning it.
Right.
That's when the doubt comes in. Have you ever experienced that, or do you know any tips on how to deal with that?
I feel like many times if you don't get the reception you were looking for and you're really feeling passionate or good about something, you put it out there and the response is not what you were hoping for. I think you just haven't found the people that it was meant for yet. I think that's a little part of it. I can relate this to poetry. I mean, I've shared poems in that writing circle where I get really great feedback on how to improve it, but I felt so strongly about it, and the response I got was a little womp womp. What I think in those moments is, okay, well, I'm really grateful for the feedback on how to make this piece better. So clearly somebody connected to something in there. It's just I haven't quite found the right formula for expressing it in a way that's going to be really compelling and that people are going to be really passionate about. So it's not that the content or the idea should be scrapped. It's that, especially when it comes to any kind of artistic endeavor or writing or anything like that, we maybe just haven't found the right format of presenting that information and that emotion. The more you share, the more you can get feedback. I don't know if it's a message that you're trying to share and you find that people aren't getting as hyped about this as you are. Maybe you just haven't found the way to phrase it that connects to what is, connecting for them and what's important for them. So I don't think there's very rarely a time where you should scrap the idea. It's just about tweaking it and finding that connection piece, I think.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Very cool. Thanks.
No worries.
Speaking of artistic creativity and being an artist, you truly are an artist. You're a poet. You're a martial artist. How do you keep the artist in you satisfied? How do you fill your artistic cup? What are some of the things that you take part in?
First of all, I am really trying to work hard on getting out of that mindset of the tortured artist and, oh, I'll only write a good poem when I'm in my depressive part of my cycle. And, I remember one time somebody asked me, write a happy poem. And I thought, No. Um, so it's interesting being somebody with mental illnesses and being an artist, because we look at history and so many amazing acclaimed artists turned out to have mental health concerns. And I think that they do kind of go hand in hand, because we express and we experience emotions in a different way. What I try to do is now is, listen and read to a lot of listen to a lot of poetry, read a lot of poetry, really immerse myself in the artists that I get inspired by, and try to have this lens of the world where everything, right now especially, it's poetry. I mean, I'm a painter and I draw as well, but right now I'm mostly focusing on poetry, and I try to be in this lens where everything I look at could be a poem. I try to look at it in its most undiluted, sort of focused, like looking at a seashell that I picked up off the beach in Florida last week. And I looked at it and I went, the colors on it look like a sunset. There's a tiny sunset in this seashell. What if there was a whole world in this seashell? What if this is the window to another world where the sun is setting right now? And, it sounds very childish, but just having that open-mindedness that everything can be art, and that expressing is better than impressing.
Very nice.
I love that. That's great, man.
It's
That's
been
awesome.
said before that true intelligence is creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to believe that myself. It's something that great things are built from creativity, right?
Absolutely.
One of the things you kind of mentioned it in, with art, your art, any art, we all, it's kind of up for interpretation, right? Like, we have our meaning of it, but as long as we don't become attached to that, like, yeah, that's what it means to us. But if you take it and if you like it and it means something different to you, then so be it, as long as it works for you. I think that's an element to it that I see.
Absolutely. I that's one thing that I enjoy with my poetry, is that obviously there's something I meant by it, but people will take little pieces and have them mean different things to them. And I
Right.
love that when they can make it their own, and kind of find a way to attach to it and connect with it. So that's been really exciting for
Yeah,
sure.
that I feel like you said, if they can connect with it, it makes it, to me, it makes it even more special. Like, that's like a really, like, they really, when you can hear it and go, yeah, I like it, but if you connect with it and kind of bring your own in, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually working on so we had talked, I'm working on another book at this time. I'm slowly looking at themes and concepts for poetry book number 2, but I'm about 60,000 words into a nonfiction book right now, which will be a guidebook for loved ones of people with BPD on how to better support them. And it also includes personal essays from other people who live with BPD. And I'm really excited about it. That one I will make every effort to have picked up by a publisher. I'd prefer not to self-publish that one, because I just want it to have the reach that it deserves. I'm going to keep working at that. I'm hoping to be finished the first draft within the next year, probably. And I'm really excited, because I think that hearing it from somebody who has lived it will help families and loved ones better understand how to support somebody who has BPD without a lot of the stigma that you find in a lot of other self-help books for BPD and a lot of other guidebooks. And some of them are just atrocious out there. So I just wanted to replace them with something that I know to be true and good. And I was like, the only way to do that is to do it myself.
It's awesome.
Amen to that. Yeah. What about would your future husband be willing to, I mean, I don't know if you would be willing to have him, but I feel like he may have like an important role to contribute to that, being.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to, well, I would like him to read what I have so far, and then we can discuss it. And then
Okay.
he definitely is full of tips and tricks for how to, even from the most simple things, like if I'm having a panic attack, he'll bring me ice packs, or if it's really bad, he'll put me in the shower, clothes and all, and put on the cold water, and just little things that he knows to do to help me handle what happens to me. But he definitely has become very well versed in how to support me with all of it. So you're absolutely right. He definitely is an asset in putting that book together.
Cool.
We're talking a lot about art, and art obviously is very important to you. And as a writer and as a speaker and as a coach, you have to keep your cup full. I was wondering who some of you, and a teacher doesn't have to necessarily be someone you know. It can be the the author of a book you read, the artist of a song or painting. Who are some of your inspirations and teachers?
I like to venture out as much as I can and read and watch and look at art from a variety of different sources to really get those different perspectives. But there are definitely a few people that are that are closer to my heart. I have a tattoo on my back. It's a large piece of script, and it's from a graphic novel by Neil Gaiman, and he is my favorite author. He is truly wonderful. He teaches me to look at the world from a different point of view and see the wonder and understand the underlying connections that maybe you don't see at first glance. There's my favorite novel that he's written is called Neverwhere, and I could talk about it forever. I won't get into it, but I definitely recommend it. It is full of imagination, but things that for something that is sort of a fantasy novel, it very much connects to life and to who we want to be as people and how we choose our paths. And so there's a lot that I learned from reading his work, which I really love. And then there's a few poets that I really really adore. I listen to a lot of poetry, poetry videos by Rudy Francisco, who is incredible. I got to see him live once, and that was amazing. He writes a lot of poetry that is real and raw and to the point, but there is always hope. It's really amazing. And then the writing circle that I was a part of was hosted by Neil Hilborn, who's another spoken word poet, and he talks a lot about his mental health challenges in a very in your face kind of way, which I really love. And I could name a lot of different people, but there's academics as well. Brene Brown is amazing. I love reading her stuff and watching her TED Talks, and I get a lot of inspiration, information, and knowledge from that. So there's a myriad people that I could list, but I think you're right that you can't be in this sort of bubble of your own art, this echo chamber. You have to be inspired by others and look for other things. Even if it challenges you or feels a little bit uncomfortable, that's where you're going to grow from, right?
Absolutely, because growth comes from the uncomfortable stuff. I am curious to know how you defeat self-doubt and artist and writer's block, I'll call it. As an artist, we can get in our heads too much because that's where our art comes from in our souls, and we have to tap into that. How do you, when you're feeling the self-doubt, what is some things that you do to get that creative juice flowing again if you find yourself blocked?
That's a tough one because sometimes you really don't know what to do. And when that happens, that's when I find that I delve into other artists and their work and try to just forget that I even am an artist and just feel what they're feeling and see what they're expressing and get really immersed in that. Sometimes if it comes to writing, you just got to write. The first 3 drafts are going to be garbage, but you just keep writing and you'll end up with, I wrote a poem recently where one line was good. That's all that was good of that poem. But I held on to that and I can build a new piece from that one line. And so whatever that garbage was, it had to come out to make way for the better stuff that came out afterwards. So sometimes it's about just doing it. I've done 3 drafts of a painting before and I end up throwing out, just copies of it that were not up to what my imagination had thought when I was planning this painting. So it's a never-ending process, and like I said, that external validation does help quite a bit. And if I have to rely on others, it's not about seeking reassurance and being lauded all the time, but just having somebody give you a little bit of perspective and tell you, no, this is great, and maybe you can adjust things a little bit here, or maybe the shadowing here can be fixed a little bit, but the piece as a whole is not bad. Just getting some feedback can help as well. But sometimes you just have to start and let it out. And with writing, just put it out on paper. And if it's garbage, it's garbage. You might end up with that one line or that one combination of 2 words that you're like, that's genius. and then you build from that, and the next piece will actually be really good.
How do you know when to say when? How do you know when a piece is done?
That is, oh man, publishing that book, I was like, oh, should I do this? Are these done? Should I edit more? What do I, that's really tough, especially when it's your own work. It's easy to read someone else's poem and say, oh, this needs maybe one last stanza to really wrap up the theme, and then you're good. But when it's your own work, you just want to keep tweaking it, and you just got to put it down and read it one last time and say, okay, is it expressing what I'm trying to express? Yes. Put it out in the world. Let it fly out of the nest. Just
overthinkers unite. Woo!
Yes. Agreed. That's a tough one. It's hard to say that it's done and that you're not going to touch it again, but sometimes you just gotta let it go.
Have you found yourself going back to have you been able to read from this book at a lot of open mics and been able to deliver this in a spoken way?
Yeah, I haven't. I'm trying to think of how many, but there's definitely been at least a handful of events where I've gotten to read some of these pieces, and that's the true test of it, is, how the audience connects with it and how people react. And it's just so great when people come up to me and they have an interpretation of it that's even a little bit different than what I meant, and I love that.
Have you found yourself actually performing these poems after putting them out and finding that, oh, you know what, I could have added a line to it? Or have you been inspired to actually edit them again, and maybe not, obviously in your book, if you're reading stuff from your book, you're not going to put out an edit of that, but have you found yourself, if you've read the poem, maybe adding something to it?
That's more rare, but sometimes what I'll find is that there's a piece of it that is inspiring me to write a whole new piece that might be connected or might be sort of like a sister poem, or so it's and it's interesting, as the years go by, my feeling of some of these pieces that I wrote years ago and kind of how I feel about them now. Actually, I could read you a piece right now if you'd like, that is
Absolutely
amazing. So this is one of the earlier pieces. It's in the first section, so it's the section that I affectionately call the angsty section, and it's a piece that I read now and I think, that's not really the place I'm in anymore, but it was at that time. And so I have to honor that is, that angstiness and that sort of mood that it was in is where I was at that time.
That's part of who you are, and that's part of how you got to where you are now.
Exactly.
I agree.
It's not something I would write now, but I have to honor it, and I think it's part of that journey. So this piece is called Because It Is Beautiful. I sit with the night, with the darkness, even during the day, because it makes for a better story, because it is beautiful. I sit with all the ways to self-harm that the world turns a blind eye to or stares at in wonder, because it is compellingly dark, romanticized, because it is beautiful. Smoke rings escaping kissable red lips, crystal beads of condensation on the neck of a glass, exchange glances and poignant anonymity. Watch me chain smoke until the nicotine reaches down through my lungs as I breathe it in and let it pull out my heart past all the words stuck in my throat. Isn't it beautiful when I offer you my pain in a way you can quote? Because it is beautiful, I will show you how beauty can be lethal. The despair comes on like a touch so sweet and soft. It sneaks into my brain like cocaine thoughts, cutting lines of hopelessness on a dirty bar, and the reflection seems so far away. Can you smell it on my breath? The shot of despair I chased it with, but all the bartender sees is the red lips, the celluloid story he could have a walk-on roll in sip after sip. I could be a tortured artist. I could cut off my ear and mail it to my past as a ransom demand for my sanity, mutilation for the sake of vanity, because it is beautiful. The keening sound of pain so ugly that it becomes beautiful. Does it take you away? Just for a moment, does it make you feel more alive? Does it show you a glimpse of meaning, a nuance you've been fearing, the depth of a gradation you dare not wade into further than a brief contemplation to excite your soul because it is beautiful? I am an ache. I am a disturbance. I am all the ways to self-harm that society turns a blind eye to or stares at in wonder, and I wish I were beautiful.
Wow, that was awesome.
That was
Yeah,
great. Very
yeah,
dark. I
you have to
like
go
it.
get that book on Amazon. Valery Brosseau through. You have to get that poetry book, man. We're gonna share the link in the show notes for this episode,
Thank
and
you.
obviously the information for all of Valéry's stuff. Valery, you obviously by the time this comes out, it'll have been a while ago, but you were recently on an episode of The Misfit Therapist.
Yes, I was. That was so great. She's
Yeah,
amazing.
she's great.
Yeah, she is super awesome. That was a great conversation we had with her.
Yeah, she's very, very cool, and she's actually helping me with a few other projects I have in the pipeline, so that's going to be super awesome.
Oh, awesome.
Perfect.
It's been cool because we've had some interactions with people that have been on our shows that have found other people from like, so it's cool to see all the connections out there and things. Wow,
Yeah.
that poem was awesome. And you are truly a beautiful soul, and the energy that you put out into the world, man, is coming back, and it's so great to see people thrive after such hard times, and you are truly a beacon of hope in all that, and I hope that continues for you, and I hope that journey never stops, and you continue to put your art out into the world and put yourself into it all, just like I know you will. But it's incredible, and I'm so grateful that we've had the opportunity to connect
Mhm.
over these last couple of years, and it's awesome to see the things that you're doing. And I wish you all the continued success in the world with it, man. It's awesome.
Thank you. You guys have been so supportive and great, and having you on my Instagram lives and just all of that connection we get to build and keep that conversation going. I think it's so valuable and it's so necessary, and it's so great to make friends that are like-minded and in that sense, and just really have each other's support. And I'm just really happy that I'm back today, and it's really great.
Yeah, it's been awesome having you back. Timmy, is there
Absolutely.
anything we've never had a repeat guest, and I find it to be a little bit odd to ask the same three questions at the end
Yeah.
of an episode, considering that you've already answered them. But I think I'm going to be kind of curious to see if any of the answers have changed.
All right.
It's up to you. Whatever you want to do, man.
All right, do you have anything else to ask
No,
Val?
no, I'm after that. I'm kind of, no, I'm speechless after that little poem there. So
Actually,
I just, I just do want to say, like Will said, thanks. And it's great to see you thrive, but it's better to see you continue to thrive. We've heard the story and we've seen your progression, and to see you pushing the limits and keep going forward is truly something to be admired for sure. It's great. You're a great role model for, this community.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So has your favorite word or least favorite word changed? I don't remember what they were, to be honest with you, but
I feel like I don't remember either, and it might be similar. Favorite word. Oh my gosh, why do I feel like I'm so on the spot right now?
Yeah, a writer who doesn't have a favorite word would be
No,
freaky.
what is this? I feel like last time I may have said vulnerability, which I mean still is very apt, because I think that if you can't be authentic and truly express what, in any situation, if you can't be authentic and truly express what you're going through, then we're not going to get anywhere, and even the silliest situations, like if you're not going to be vulnerable enough to say that you don't like this soup because it's too spicy, well, the waiter's not going to bring you a new soup.
Send back the soup, man. Send back the soup.
I mean, politely, of course,
Of
but
course, of course. What about a least favorite word?
least
Yeah,
favorite
what's your
word.
least favorite word currently?
Currently, I'm getting a little bit sick of people who use the term political correctness to mean that we are being overly sensitive to people's feelings. I think that being inclusive, being respectful, being, anti-oppressive, all of those things is so important. And when you boil it down to, oh, you're just being politically correct, then you're diminishing and belittling a social movement that is really aiming to offer people more dignity. So that is that grinds my gears currently.
I love it. Just like all those fucking people used, woke culture. Yeah, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
You know what? The part of the
Be
problem is that if we
human.
were more sensitive to people, we wouldn't have the fucking issues that we have in this goddamn world.
Exactly.
I've been changing up this middle question quite a bit, so I'm curious. This is a new one.
To me, spirituality is whatever connects you to this world in a way that's bigger than yourself. I am not a religious person. I usually refer to the universe where other people might refer to their God. I think that spirituality is just believing that there are some things we can't understand. There are some things that science can't explain, that we, energy and putting things out and what we get back and the people we attract and all of that. So that to me, that's what that is, this sort of nebulous, more ethereal way of looking at the world where, of course, my first degree is in archaeology. I'm a scientist. I believe in that. And at the same time, just knowing that maybe the universe has a plan for me, and just things are unfolding as they should.
I love that because my word for the G word is unity. Because I'm
Okay,
not
cool.
I don't like the G word because it's got too many connotations to me. So I started to refer to everything as unity just because it's the universe, and to me that's what it's all about. That cohesiveness.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So your favorite word from last time, you were correct. Vulnerability.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm
Nice.
on I'm on the same train track.
Yeah, yeah. Nice job. Nice job. So if there was anything that you would you could do or that you would like to see done for mental health as a whole without any kind of restraint, what would that look like?
Well, without any kind of restraint, there's so many options. If I were to pick something that's a little more quantifiable and easier to explain, I think that having a more structured and forthcoming mental health support program and teaching program in schools for youth would be really important. So being able to have that support there. I know many schools have their counselors, social workers, etc., but being able to have classes and discussions and things that are just more structured, offering more information. They're youth dealing with symptoms and different things where they don't even know that there's a name for the disorder that they're experiencing. So yeah, I think that would be one thing. It's starting young, starting a lot younger would be something I would focus on.
Excellent. Agree.
Love
Agree
it.
fully.
Goes to show language, having the language to speak it, having the words to say it,
Absolutely.
and is very important because that is very intimidating when you can't put your words, when you can't put your thoughts into words, and it creates this whole anxiety within.
Hmm.
I said to Will not that long ago, I had just recently finished the book What Happened to You. It's geez, I forget the guy's name now. What's his
Dr. Bruce Perry.
Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah put this book out, and after I got done, I said to Will that this book should be like part of, if you're getting hired as a in any kind of setting, but in a school setting, like this book should be handed out, and this needs to be read, and we're going to discuss it
Yeah,
because I think a lot of it is what you said. It's like we don't know, right? We don't know that this kid's acting out, and when I put my arm or my hand on his shoulder and the kid flips out, he's not a bad kid.
yeah,
She's not a bad kid. There's something happened to them. Let's figure
for
out
sure.
why and try and work with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, trauma informed, very important.
Yeah, trauma informed, person centered is super super important,
Mhm.
and we need to keep in mind that yes, we all are in the same ocean, but we don't all ride the same wave. So it's very important to, but it's awful hard for people who aren't aware. And I found that awareness is the first key to anything.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here as always. Thank you so much for everything you're putting out and for being a friend and for being a friend of the show. And I wish you and your fiance the best. And thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for being here.
It was really
Um,
exciting to be back. I'm really thankful.
Absolutely. I hope we can connect outside of this sooner
For
than
sure.
later, just because it's been too long and obviously things are very busy. Can you lead us out with one of your poems, Timmy? It's been another great conversation. Um, Yeah,
Absolutely.
I just think it's better just to let her. I think it's better just to let her lead us out with a poem. And
All
Take it
right.
away, Val.
Sounds good. This is the title poem. It is called Through, and I hope it gives you a little bit of boost on your day for the rest of your day. Through. They say it comes in waves. A cliche, but that's because waves are eternal and drowning is a horrible way to go. When surfers paddle out beyond the break, they dive through the crashing waves, finding the still beneath, where the whitecaps can't reach. They find the calm of the other side. They trust the water because the way out is through. I set my soul on a current my feet have yet to tread, unsure if I want to sink or swim. Do I let the waves win the only one that matters? I carry on regardless. As the waves get bigger, the sweet gets bitter, and all the ways to self-harm society turns a blind eye to get closer, but the way out is through. Battles won and lost, a field of corpses in the wake left behind, relationships, habits, self-concepts. They did not die in vain. I did not die. Not in vain, not as a martyr, a whisper, a ghost, refusing to give the depth what it wants most. The way out is through, shedding the weights that lead me to meet the ocean floor, parting the seas of vices and sharp edges, or the seas of all that I could be if I made it through. The way out is through, and the ocean is eternal, and I will always be diving through crashing waves, one after the other, arriving on the other side as someone who has made it through. The waves are tall, and water can be deadly in the deep of the blue. The path is arduous, but the way out is through.
wow, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had no idea about the wave thing when I said that before we started, which was pretty amazing. I was like, whoa, wait a second. That was awesome. Wow. Thank you so much. Everyone, if you want to find Valery, you can find Valery at ValeryBrosseau.com. You can find her book on Amazon. It's called Through. It's a book of poetry. She is amazing. Find her on her website if you're seeking coaching or if you're seeking resources in Canada. Val, thank you so much, and we so appreciate it. So much love to you.
You guys are the best. I'm so happy to be back, and thank you for your friendship as always.
You're welcome, and thank you for yours. Timmy, until next week, be well.
Be safe.
Be
above.
there you go.
Above. Thank you for giving us a listen. New episodes every Wednesday. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can share, rate, review, and even subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Other ways to support the show: follow us on social media, share the content, share our episodes. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/abovegroundpod. For further concerns, show ideas, or just to say hi, you can email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting mental health. Keep the conversation going and stay above.